Right. That was a bit loud, sorry. Right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the executive on the 28th of November, 2023. Thank you for coming out tonight. Thank you, officers, for coming out. Thank you, exec. Thanks, Dan, Carolyn, nice to see you, and some members of the public. That's good to see. Thank you. Right, we've got quite a long agenda, so we'll try and get through it all for you quickly. Firstly, apologies for absence. There are no apologies. Okay, great. Item 2, leaders' announcements. As always, we are out in the world on the internet, so please use microphones when you speak. Right, item 3, minutes. So the minutes of the 3rd of October 2023 executive on pages 6 to 17. We have in front of us the minutes. Any members content, or are members content for me to sign these off as correct? Marnie.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, I propose that we accept these minutes as a true record.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Do we have a second? Oh, Alex, thank you. Thanks very much. Any comments, any corrections from anyone? No. Okay. Can we take a vote? All those in favour of the minutes as they are? Thank you very much. Anyone against or abstaining? No. That's okay. That's all good. Thank you. Declarations of interest. Item 4. Anything to declare? No. Okay. Great. Thank you. Right. Let's move on to the first item. Item 5, consideration of mandating card payment facilities in licensed vehicles, which is page 18 to 49 of the agenda pack, and the first of Vicky's many evening appearances. Welcome. Over to you.
Okay. Evening, everybody. The key purpose of the Hackney Carriage and private hire licensing regimes is to ensure public safety. This proposed policy to mandate card payment facilities in all licensed vehicles will help to ensure that people have more options to be able to pay for a Hackney Carriage or private hire vehicle and get to their chosen destination safely. Just to be clear, there is no intention to remove the ability to take cash by drivers, and the card payment system is intended to be an additional payment system. In March of this year, the East Herts licensed trade was surveyed regarding the use of card payment facilities. 97 responses were received and 95% of the respondents already operated card payment facilities. The survey results are in Appendix A. In May of this year, the licensed trade were formally consulted regarding the policy to mandate the provision of card payment facilities. This consultation document included the proposed wording for the policy and a link to an online survey to respond. When the survey closed on the 31st of May, 34 responses had been received. The consultation wording and responses to the formal consultation are in Appendix B. Several possible issues with the policy were raised in the responses, and these are addressed within the report. In addition to the online survey responses, 2 licensed drivers sent in additional emails, which raised similar issues to those raised by the online survey. The additional responses are in Appendix C. Overall, 96% of the responses to the formal consultation were supportive of the policy, and 94% already had card payment figures. Sorry, I think I've gone over the same bit twice. Appendix D shows the consideration given to the comments from the licensing committee, comments from myself and officers regarding the points raised, and what action, if any, was taken as a result. The final proposed wording following this lengthy process is contained with Appendix E. You will see that the wording of the policy makes compliance a requirement from the 1st of April 2023, with the 3-month transition period to allow drivers to source a card payment system if they don't have one, proposed to start 1st of January 2023. Originally, the idea for compulsory card readers came from an inquiry from the Office of the Police and Crime Commissioner, who had raised it as a safeguarding concern. The East Herts licensing manager who is also the chair of the Hearts and Beds licensing group, surveyed Hertfordshire local authorities and found that 2 had mandated card payment facilities, St Albans and Watford. Bringing this policy in will mean that 3 local authorities have the same criteria, which we will try to introduce county-wide. I'd like to ask the exec to make a recommendation to full council for approval for the policy to introduce a requirement to provide card payment facilities in all vehicles licensed by East Herts.
Thanks very much. So you're happy to propose the report?
Yes, I'm proposing the report.
Thank you very much. Anyone prepared to second it? Yep. Okay. Thanks. Thanks, Joseph. Thanks, Joe. Right. Questions? Any comments, thoughts, views? Chris.
Thank you. Just in my other life, working for TfL, I've had experienced this policy gone through before. There's been no issues with it at all. I know that's the case for many local authorities. So I would support the proposal.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, it really does. It does seem to make sense. How can it not be better to ensure people can have a wider variety of ways to pay? So it's yeah. Okay. Any other comments, Alex?
As you're also leaving the option of cash, I think it's really good that people will have both options still.
Great. Okay. So so the proposal is to recommend. Sorry, I can't see my writing. So the recommendation is detailed on page 18 of the agenda pack. There's just one recommendation. So can we have a show of hands in for or against, please? First for. Lovely. Thank you. Anyone against or abstaining? No. That's passed. Thank you very much. Right. Item 6 on the agenda, the Watton Stone Neighbourhood Plan, which is pages 50 to 142 in the agenda pack. Vicky, back to you.
Thank you, Leader. I'm delighted to be bringing the first of 2 neighbourhood plans before exec this evening, as this shows how engaged our residents are in our wonderful district. The Watton Stone Parish Council have taken a proactive approach to meeting the district plan housing requirements for the village, as this is the first neighbourhood plan in East Herts to release land from the Greenbelt with the allocation of 2 strategic sites. This meets and exceeds the required growth, thereby delivering significant community benefits. In addition to housing allocations, the neighbourhood plan includes local green spaces, protected views and new pedestrian and cycle links, which will contribute towards sustainable development in Watton Stone. In the examination report, the examiner concludes that the neighbourhood plan is of a very high quality, with particular emphasis on it being well researched, well evidenced and clearly laid out. The support of the community is demonstrated at the referendum in October, with 95% of votes in favour of the plan. It is therefore considered that the neighbourhood plan will be a positive addition to the East Herts development management process, and we're asking the executive recommend to council that Watton Stone neighbourhood plan is formally made or adopted.
Thank you very much. And you're proposing that?
I am.
Okay, of course. Anyone second? Sarah, thank you. Comments, thoughts? Yeah, Tim?
Hi. Yeah, I was interested why, if it was clear why Watton Stone had decided to go over and above the requirement, and you mentioned community benefits. I wondered if that was something we could explore here so others could understand what those community benefits are and whether others could consider doing the same.
Laura Guy, could you please answer for that, please?
Yes, of course. They had a very strong desire to sort of improve the active travel within Watton Stone. They've got the station, so they were very key to make sure that the development on the edge of the village was sort of tied into the village. So as part of that, they wanted a bridge to cross the River Bean to connect the developments and create a sort of circular path. So that was one of the key key factors that they wanted sort of extra development to sort of be able to fund that. And they also have a local need for football pitches, and the creation of a wetland meadow was the other sort of local benefit that they wanted.
Thank you very much. Anything else? Any other comments? No? All quiet? Okay, should we take a vote? For or against? It is any hands in for? Hands for, please. Thank you very much. Anyone against? No? Abstentions? No. Okay, that's passed. Thank you. Right. Okay, Vicky, back to you again. Item number 7 on the agenda. This is the Ware neighbourhood plan on pages 143 to 273.
So Ware is the second of our neighbourhood plans. This plan has a clear focus on consolidating the role and the attractiveness of the town centre. It designates a package of local green spaces and includes policies to preserve the heritage and the character of the town. It does not allocate sites for development, but seeks to provide opportunities for sustainable development within a context which maintains the distinct historic and natural environment in Ware, excluding the area covered by the district plan allocation Ware 2. In the examination report, the examiner concludes it is an excellent neighbourhood plan for the town and addresses an important set of issues. He particularly praised the presentation of the plan and the way in which the supporting text underpins the policies which will assist decision makers. At the referendum in September, 91% voted in favour of using the neighbourhood plan to help decide applications in the neighbourhood area. It is therefore considered that the neighbourhood plan will be a positive addition to the East Herts development management process, and we're asking that Executive recommend to Council that Ware neighbourhood plan is formally made or adopted.
Thanks very much, Vicky. So you're proposing seconding from anyone? Oh, you can in a minute. Seconder. Thanks, Carl. Okay, seconder. Carolyn, over to you.
You have the
Oh, sorry.
microphone on.
Microphone.
Yeah, I've forgotten how to use this. It's so long since. In the referendum, what was the turnout like for that? For the Ware neighbourhood plan?
Yeah, it was 16.6%. So
Right, it's quite low, really. But I suppose there was no other election or anything going on at the time. So
yes, I mean, it was quite low. They tend, I think the highest is probably around 30%. So 16 was probably one of the lower turnouts, but they did do quite a lot of local publicity, posters. They put the plans on in the library. They leafleted. So yeah, I'm not quite sure why. I think potentially sometimes when there isn't development or there isn't sort of sites for development, potentially that doesn't bring people out for or against. But yes, it was lower than some of the others.
thank you.
Joe.
Thank you, Ben. I mean, yeah, it was 16% turnout, but I think 90% voted in favour of it. So that's probably the important thing. But I mean, I suppose it does speak to, quite often we're contacted as councillors after the event, aren't we? So after the event, we're told, why are you doing this? What's all that about? I didn't want this. But these are the opportunities that residents have to come out and have their say. So yeah, it is really important we do encourage people to turn out. And even though it's a very small turnout potentially, 90% of people who came out voted in favour.
Yeah, that's a key point. Anyone else? Any other comments, questions? No? Okay. Thank you. So, okay, as with the Watton neighbourhood plan, we have one recommendation to recommend that the neighbourhood area plan is formally adopted. Can I have a show of hands, please, in support? Thank you very much. Anyone against? Any abstentions? No, that's passed. Thank you very much. Item 8 is the next on our agenda. Land at Walken Road, which is WAS3, was 3, Master Planning Framework, which is on pages 274 to 314 of the agenda pack. And once again, it's back to Vicky to present.
Thank you. The land at Walkham Road is an allocated site for 60 homes, site WAS 3 in the Watton Stone neighbourhood plan, and is the first neighbourhood plan site that meets the requirement in the district plan to prepare a master plan. The purpose of master plan framework documents is to bridge the gap between the policy allocating the site and the detail of a planning application by providing a collaborative approach to agreeing the high-level design and layout principles for the site in the context of local constraints and opportunities. It establishes the key parameters to guide developers and decision makers without being too prescriptive, so that the detailed design can be shaped by the assessments and engagement with consultees at the planning application stage. The neighbourhood plan creates a strong vision for the site, and building on the local engagement through the neighbourhood plan process, a Watton Stone steering group was established to shape this master plan, involving officers, Fairview Homes, councillors and the local community. Proposals have also been informed by feedback from the Hertfordshire Design Review Panel. The final master plan document sets out a framework for a sustainable, low carbon and landscape-led development, with a strong emphasis on enhancing active travel by involving walking and cycling connections to the village centre and surrounding countryside. This includes provision of a new bridge over the River Bean as part of a village circular walk identified in the neighbourhood plan, which has been agreed in principle by the Environment Agency. Open space is a key feature within the site and serves as a green buffer between the residential development and the river. The protection and enhancement of the River Bean is a key priority of the site, and the master plan proposes biodiversity improvements on the land south of the river to improve the ecological value of the area. Therefore, the master plan framework document, as detailed in Appendix A to this report, provides a good basis to guide a future planning application, and it is recommended that the document is agreed as a material consideration for the development management purposes.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Vicky. And you're proposing?
I am proposing
and,
it.
And can someone else second, please? Anyone second? Alex, thank you very much. So, questions, comments, thoughts? I think, go on, Alex.
I mean, obviously, this has come sort of alongside the neighbourhood plan, so they've sort of been sort of developed in parallel. So I don't think it's really come as any surprise in that there's been sort of ongoing consultation on this for the last 8 years. So I think there really has been a process of sort of bringing the community with them and looking at the role of these houses and the sort of community benefits that they can provide and how they'll be sort of connected to the village. So I think there has, you know, it is a positive example of where the community really have come along with it, really, which I think is demonstrated by the sort of 95% at referendum, which is quite an achievement when you're allocating sort of 2 strategic sites. So.
This I suppose it's a wee bit circular, this, but could the master plan lean on the neighbourhood plan, even though the neighbourhood plan wasn't approved? Was there a good dialogue between the neighbourhood plan and the master plan? Are they sympathetic to each other, or do we have to go through all that loop again now that the neighbourhood plan's been?
It's the reason I did the master plan first, because
Right.
the neighbourhood plan first, because the master plan comes out of that.
So they have worked sympathetic.
Yes, because the site is allocated as part of
Yes.
the neighbourhood plan.
Yeah.
So.
Thanks very much. Yeah, I mean, going along and seeing the 2 master planning sessions was quite an eye opener, because the resident group obviously had quite an expertise, I think, within the group, and the developer team they worked really well together. It was great to see how kind of positive that relationship can be. It was a real eye-opener for me. So yeah, it's great. Okay, so the recommendation for this item is detailed on page 274 of the agenda pack. The recommendation is that we recommend that the land walk and road master plan framework document is agreed as a material consideration for development management purposes. So can we have a show of hands in support, please? Thank you very much. Anyone against? And no abstentions? No? Okay, that's passed. Thank you very much. Right, that's on to item 9, which is the Harlow and Gilston Garden Town Joint Committee proposal, which is on pages 315 to 392 of the agenda pack, and I'm going to present that. So this report is on a proposal to establish the joint committee structure for future decision making around Harlow and Gilston Town project. Obviously, the Gilston part of the larger project is a key strategic development for us in our district plan, but as part of the wider Garden Town project, oh, sorry, thank you, thanks, Laura. Sorry. As part of the wider Garden Town project, we're working with 2 county councils, Hertfordshire and Essex, plus Epping Forest and Harlow District Council, and working with this number of partners across a wide area brings benefits. You know, we've managed to get a non-insignificant £171 million infrastructure fund, but working with those partners also creates a rather large challenge. It's slow and unwieldy in decision making, so the councils in the partnership have to take the decision making away from the group and go back to their own councils. It's bound by a duty to cooperate, but we still have to go through that complex process. So it's certainly not a means at present of agile decision making, and I think things can take up to 16 months to agree. And we don't also have fair support for administration and financial balance across the partners, so that's a problem. And lastly, decision making at present is not fully transparent and accountable to public scrutiny in the way it should be. So I think board meetings are closed to the public. So there's obviously improvements that we want to produce, and I think the joint committee structure is a way of achieving these changes. I think we need to be clear that planning decisions and statutory plan making responsibilities remain with the constituent partners. So we keep power over planning decisions, and we continue to work with Hertfordshire Highways and Essex Highways on those issues, on highways issues. So what the joint committee enables is cross-border strategic decision making and policy making. So those are the kinds of things that we need if we're going to try and achieve a large development where significant modal shift towards walking, cycling, and active travel. So they're important targets to bear in mind, and I think the joint committee structure helps us achieve that. And if we absolutely can't agree, if officers can't negotiate a shared solution, there is still a nuclear option of saying no more. So I'm happy to propose that we accept the joint committee structure. Can I have a seconder? Oh, Marnie, thank you very much. Yeah. Okay. Comments, questions? Joe, go on. Let you go first.
Thank you. Just a question on recommendation C. It says authority to be delegated to the head of legal and democratic services in consultation with the leader to make any necessary non-consequential and minor amendments and refer to the HGTT chair and director. to make a non-consequential amendments to what? In what respect?
I might pass to Sarah at that point, or James.
Do you want me to answer in the first instance? So because we've gone through each council's democratic process to agree the joint committee, so it's already been considered by Harlow, Hertfordshire and Epping Forest. There are some changes that come up in relation to just last minute clarifications to do, which are really minor, that are picked up along the way. So it's to pick up things like that. So some of it relates to just small points and changes that actually it's best place for James as the head of legal and democratic services to agree those. So that I don't know, James, if you want to give a specific example. No, it's just in relation to the reports and the inter-authority agreement. So if anything minor comes through that process and anything needs to be clarified by the end of it, it's in order to agree those clarifications as part of that process. So it would be nothing major, it's just minor, anything that we could have missed throughout the process that is just swept up at the end.
Just to add to that, as Sarah says, if we didn't have this in, what that would mean is that we would have to go through this process to bring everything through. And clearly we have only a set amount of exec meetings scheduled during the year. So if there were very minor things that needed to be tidied up, this recommendation would allow me to go in there, make the changes and report them back. We always report changes to the Constitution back later on. But this allows us to go in and kind of make those changes during the life of the committee, basically, without needing to come back here to get your authority to make those changes.
Hermione?
Thank you, Leader. Yes, I would like to speak strongly in support of these proposals. It seems to me that this new committee would be able to speed up decision making, which would be a great advantage, plus all the other advantages which you listed. So I do think this is very sensible and I support it wholeheartedly. Thank you.
Thanks, Hermione. Any other comments or questions?
You mentioned a nuclear option. I presume that's if there is a termination or that simply can't progress. Can you add anything to that? How do we get out?
I think that should probably come from Sarah. But I think, there's a lot of, I think, just want to stress there's a lot of stages that we
Sure.
could go through before
Sure.
that would be considered, because ultimately there's an infrastructure fund there, and I think we all partners recognise that actually we want to see that infrastructure put in, and it would be at risk if we start pulling out. So I think over to Sarah.
Yeah, there's a clause in the authority agreement which relates to termination, and that would be if we get to a particular point on an issue where we don't think we can reach agreement, and there's an impasse, and we can't go any further. In order to support the committee, officers would want to be making sure that reports that go up to the committee, have any issues, any partner issues, have been worked through by officers in the first instance, so we don't get to the point where one authority is unhappy with the decision of the joint committee. So if there are issues within the partnership that need to be picked up and raised, it's on all of the challenge for the officers supporting the committee to work through that and not put anything up where we think that would put the committee in a really difficult position.
Joe?
Is there a process for, in the unlikely event of something like that happening, is there a process for members of this council to be sort of made aware, or that we're in difficult situations, or would we just first find out when there's a nuclear strike?
I mean, obviously each council's overview and scrutiny arrangements still apply, but we would be wanting to make sure that we're reporting in any particular issues with the joint committee. That's kind of good practice to be able to do that. So no, we wouldn't want to get to a point where actually there were issues and didn't hear until the last minute. So we'd be wanting to make sure that there was that oversight and any particular issues were raised and worked through.
Okay. Anything else? Any other comments? Okay. All right. So the recommendation, well, there are 4 recommendations for this item. They're on pages 315 to 316 of the agenda pack. I won't read them out. But can we have a show of hands to indicate whether we're in favour or against, please? Thank you. Thanks very much. Anyone against? And any abstentions? Thank you. Okay, that's passed. Next on the agenda is item 10, a listening council, which is on pages 393 to 412. And Chris, over to you.
Thank you. I have pleasure in introducing what I believe is a very important starting point to change the culture of how the council engages with the residents. Traditionally, councils have adopted a top-down approach. Necessarily, councillors know more detail than the average resident about the decisions we have to make. We have the time and are tasked as councillors to understand the detail and do the hard yards and read all the documents we are given to peruse. And of course, we have the expertise of officers to help us. Besides this, I believe East Herts has then often repeatedly used the same channels to consult and then had the same people respond. These things have led to a disjunct between residents and the council in some circumstances, and particularly with some demographics. I experienced, for example, a stark difference between responses on the doors when canvassing between people in more impoverished areas and those in richer estates. Similarly, age and nationality seem to play a part in response levels, and it's disappointing that the turnout is so low in local elections, when what we do and how we do it matters to all residents. So this paper is providing a framework by which we should consider who to consult with and listen to and how to consult. The paper does not seek to detail all the different groups that need to be consulted with and listened to, as there is a great amount of diversity in terms of many factors. It's about a set of principles in terms of how we find those people. Importantly, it is also about, when we listen and consult, how much information we give and in what terms that information is couched. We have many knowledgeable and interested residents. We need to lift the veil on the constraints and complications we have before we make decisions, so they are truly engaged. Crucially, a listening council does not mean residents will always get what they want or believe is correct. We will not be operating a referendum type system for every decision. We are the ones elected to decide. The crucial change this paper hopes to enable is that we truly listen to what people are saying, give them the tools to make informed comments, and then we make decisions having taken all their points into consideration. And we hope to have a wider range of the population making these comments. Then, when we do make the decision, we need to be clear why the decisions have been made and how comments from the public have been considered, whether agreed with or not. Finally, I was pleased to bring this paper before overview and scrutiny and have duly considered the committee members' comments, the responses to which are in one of the appendices. But I would make one point. Much was made of financial constraints with the things we wish to do. There are some, but retraining staff to change their culture and ways of working has no cash outlay and ultimately will save money if done properly, as things such as complaints and misunderstandings from residents should be minimised. I move this paper be accepted as a way of moving us forward towards making this council more of a listening council and being seen as a partnership with residents.
Thanks, Chris. You're proposing the paper, I guess?
Indeed.
Thank you. And can I have a seconder? Joe. Thank you very much. Right. Questions, comments, thoughts? Marnie.
Thank you, Leader. I strongly support this paper. I do think it should be the an accepted principle and ethos of this council that we always listen to our residents and we always consult. We're here to serve them, and we're much more likely to be able to do that if we know what they think and what they need. And we do need to consult with as wide a range of people as we possibly can, and not just a small group of the political nerds who look at our website regularly. We need to consult with all our residents, and I think this is a first step to doing it, and I do hope that the council will adopt it, will embrace it, and will fully act upon it. So, thank you, Leader. Thank you.
Thanks, Marnie. Yeah, that's a really good point. Any other comments? Yeah, Joe.
I just take the opportunity to say I strongly endorse this as well, but also I think as Marnie touched on, it's a starting point. You know, culture change doesn't happen overnight. We don't wave a magic wand and everything changes. This document provides the foundation for us to start doing that. And hopefully over time we will learn and we will be able to improve. And yes, we do need to make sure that we consult with as wide and diverse sections or segments of our community as we possibly can. How many people in our residents, in our public think they won't listen to me? That's not for me. That's for someone else to get involved with. And then they're often on the receiving end of decisions, and that's when you get disgruntled residents. So as a starting point, this is absolutely something I want to endorse, and hopefully we can change that culture over the next few years, and we will start to see outcomes. Perhaps when we have a referendum, 16%, maybe by the end of this term, that'll be 30, 40, 50%. And these are the kind of real changes that we'd hope to come out of this kind of process. And it isn't just we're going to listen and not hear. What was it in before? We've got to listen, we've got to hear. But yeah, it's a starting point, and it's really exciting to be involved in something that's looking to make this change.
Yeah, no, thanks. I completely agree. It's not as if, I mean, I don't think we're not pointing fingers at the council as not having listened before. I think that's clear. But I think it's as much for members as anything. It's about changing the way that we work and that all the members work over the next 4 years. I think that's really important. And it's important to thank you, Chris, for taking this on, and Jonathan and his team for really driving it forwards. I think it's great, really great to see. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so recommendation. The recommendation is this item detailed on page 393 to endorse the draft listening council. A question before we do it. So this is the consultation period. Is it still open? Is it till?
I would need to check with Jonathan, to be fair.
Yeah, okay.
We'll see the process.
Yeah, but it's not closed. Okay. Yeah, so we want to endorse the draft listening council principles for public consultation. So can we have a show of hands in support, please? Thank you very much. Anyone against? And any abstentions? No. Okay, thank you very much. That's carried. Good. Item 11. Community forums and development management forums, which are on pages 413 to 431 of the agenda pack. And it's back to you, Vicky, after you've had a short break.
Thank you. Building on from the previous agenda item, which set out the principles for being a listening council, the report before you acknowledges the importance of community engagement in the planning process and is proposing on building on the opportunities that already exist for community engagement in planning. We already have an established approach in terms of involving key stakeholders in the master planning of strategic sites, which is at an early stage of the planning process. And we are proposing to set up community forums for strategic sites across the district to assist with communications and engagement as development starts happening on the ground. We recognise that engagement with existing and new residents is important, and we have recent experience at Stortford Fields in Bishop Stortford, where poor communication from the house builders has meant that there has been little information about the development as it progresses and how issues on the ground are being managed as they arise. As outlined in Appendix A, community forums would provide an opportunity for developers, residents, community groups, members and council officers to engage with each other over the lifetime of the development once planning permission has been granted. They will offer an opportunity for existing and new communities to raise issues of interest and concern with a view to enhancing the quality of life and communication. Paragraphs 310, 311 and 312 outline the areas and sites where forums could be set up now and in the future. It's not an exhaustive list, and it will be kept under review, and sites will be added to it as and when they come up. The aim would be to get forums set up in the new year and review after 6 months and then a year to ensure they're working as intended and taking on board any suggestions for improvement. The report also outlines the proposal to set up a development management forum for planning applications, which meet certain criteria. If the criteria are met, then a development management forum can be held early on in the planning application process, to facilitate the sharing of any planning concerns raised by residents. The aim is to allow early and constructive discussion of planning issues raised by residents and explore the scope for building consensus and resolving concerns, while allowing enhancements informed by local knowledge to be considered in a proactive manner. The outline for the Development Management Forum is set out in Appendix B and would generally be for complex or sensitive major planning applications for development of 50 or more homes. The forum will not determine planning applications, and the decision on planning applications will still be determined by the Development Management Committee or through delegation to officers in the normal way. This paper has already been discussed thoroughly at overview and scrutiny, and we have taken on board a number of helpful suggestions that were made. We're also scheduled for a further review of the pros and cons of the system in practice with overview and scrutiny after operating for around 18 months. As outlined in the recommendations, I'm asking for an agreement to set up the community forums for strategic sites and also to set up a development management forum for applications meeting the criteria. So yes, I propose the motion.
You beat me to it. Look, thank you very much. That's great. Can I have a seconder, please? Oh, Chris, thank you very much. Okay, comments, questions. I can see Carolyn hand straight up. Okay, red microphone.
Thank you. Yes, I think these are very, very good ideas, but I do have some queries. Could I have some further explanation of you kept saying a development management, but I think I've misunderstood that. So this would be one forum, which I don't quite get what you mean.
So one of the complaints we've had from residents is they only get 3 minutes or so to speak at Development Management Committee. So they would like to have a little bit more time to talk to Development Management Committee, local councillors, any other councillors that want to come to the forum to actually for them to present the issues that they perceive with the developments and potentially also hopefully some solutions to those issues. So it's a development management forum because we would expect to have DMC on it, and we would expect to have a similar cohort of people from this side of the table, if that makes sense. Although we would also expect individual developers to also come along and listen. So that's why it's A rather than forums.
I understand that is different from what I imagined. The next thing is described as a meeting where residents can present their views to councillors, planning officers and the applicant early in the planning application process. But then it goes on to say it will be attended by up to 3 resident representatives, and that seems a very small amount. Up to, it says it's where the residents can present their views, but it's not like an open meeting. It seemed to me that it was going to be like an open meeting where concerned residents could come and raise their concerns or whatever, but it's not really going to work like that, is it? So up to 3 resident representatives, up to 3 representatives of the applicant and members of the relevant committee. Presumably you mean the Development Management Committee. Yeah, that's what. And then the public can attend as observers. Well, it doesn't seem to me that you're actually including the public. I may have misunderstood something, so that's why I'm asking for an explanation.
No, that outlines it quite nicely. I think that the thing is that once we're at planning application stage, there are various legal strictures within which we have to work. And having been to public meetings and chaired public meetings where there are a number of people that want to speak, they get quite agitated, I think would be the best way of putting it. And we want to have something a little bit more structured, which is why we're looking to have 3 representative residents as opposed to everybody being able to speak.
I get it. Yeah. So really, if you wanted to, you've got to choose those representatives. So you actually need a public meeting before that to thrash out who would be the representatives. Okay, thank you.
Alex.
So I welcome this paper. I think a lot of the new councillors have been elected through the contentious issues that have occurred in planning locally. And it feels to me like there's been a gap. There's been the public meetings between the developers, this sort of master planning stage, and then a long, long gap, particularly when there's a delay before it comes to planning. So I think this will be really helpful in bridging that gap and giving, particularly where we've got campaign groups involved who've done a lot of the work that perhaps Carolyn is envisaging needs to be done. But I think that'll be really good to provide this extra opportunity to influence the plan. So thank you.
Chris.
Yeah, again, I support this, or these papers, these ideas. I mentioned before a phrase of lifting the veil on the issues that we have. And I think this is exactly what we'll be doing in these situations. There's unfortunately, I think, a lot of mistrust of the planning system and planning officers, and sometimes quite outrageous things are said, totally incorrect things are said about the process and about the decision making. And this will hopefully help people understand exactly what we are up against and what the constraints are, and maybe also bring in some possible solutions, as Vicky said.
Marnie.
Thank you, Leader. Well, I would like to speak as a representative of Bishop Stortford Town Council Planning Committee. I welcome this very, very much. And I do know that the Town Council Planning Committee often feels that its views are completely ignored by the District Council, and it wished that it had been able to play a part earlier in some of the applications and some of the decisions that are made. So this would address that if they could be able to attend some of the meetings and hear what is going on and be able to make representation and to feel that maybe their views representing the town residents, that their views are being listened to and taken account of. Because at the moment they do feel very disappointed and they think, oh, what's the point of us going to all this trouble to look at things and make comments, and then the District Council completely ignores us and doesn't come back to us with any reasons or yes, any ideas about why they've decided the way they have. So if the Town Council representatives can come to these meetings, they would all be very, very happy. So I welcome this paper. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you. Joe.
I think I understand the point Councillor Redfern's making, but I don't think what we're talking about here is a town hall style scenario where everyone can come and everyone can talk. But if there are three, so that's limited, what's the kind of selection process for who those three could be? Is it first come, first served? Because if you had three individuals, for example, that got in there first, and then you had a person representing a group of 100 people, how do we get that bit right? We might not have that process yet, so I'm not putting you on the spot if that hasn't gone through.
There is a requirement for a petition, but I think Sarah might want to go into a little bit more detail.
That's right. Part of the criteria is that you need to have at least 25 signatures from residents in order to submit a request. And part of that is obviously as residents coordinating amongst themselves. So if there's 25 residents that are prepared to sign a petition, then there should be 3 people from that would be willing to come along to the forum and present the case for residents. So it's part of being coordinated. And as you say, it's not the same as a public meeting. It's about trying to be quite focused on what are the planning issues that are of concern for residents, and are there any potential solutions to overcome those, drawing on local knowledge and information.
But I think it's worth saying that the community forums are probably more like a public town hall meeting.
Just want to make just a thank you for making that really clear, because I really didn't understand it before. Thank you.
Great. Any other comments, questions? Okay, and also I want to point out on page 420, there is a very handy diagram which explains the process, which is good. So thank you for everyone. Thank you for the comments and questions. So the recommendation for this item is detailed on page 413 of the agenda pack. There are two recommendations. Can we have a show of hands to indicate whether we're in favour or against? In favour, please. Thank you very much. Any against or abstaining? No. Okay, that's carried. Thank you very much. Right, we're moving on to item 12, which is health and safety at the Ward Freeman Pool on page 432 to 437 of the agenda pack. And over to Sarah.
Thank you, Councillor Crystal. There's a lot to say about this issue, and I'd like to thank you in advance for giving me time to express both the views of the residents and my own thoughts and feelings about this matter. So by way of introduction, shortly after being elected in May, we found out that Ward Freeman Pool did need several repairs. Particular of concern was around the filtration system and the boiler and tiles lifting off the floor. And there were concerns about a crack. And myself, Carl, and our two ward councillors in Buntingford spent quite a lot of time over the summer and over the subsequent months trying to identify what could be done about this, which I'll speak about in more detail later on. But just to add at this point, two of our Buntingford ward councillors have children who are learning to swim at that pool, so this does directly affect them as well. So around about November time, during this time, the pool has been receiving increased microbiology testing to ensure that the water is safe to use. There have been increasing concerns about the safety of this and how long the filtration system can last. And around the beginning of November, we were kind of alerted that it was becoming more urgent, really. And approximately 2 weeks ago, we learnt that actually, even though we had hoped that it would be able to stay open for a few months longer, that the risk is too great to keep it open beyond December, really, to be able to guarantee the safety of the water. So that's sort of the background, but obviously underlying all of this is the issue of the cost of those repairs and also the cost of the ongoing running costs of the pool, both of which are fairly substantial. But before I go into that, a lot of questions have been asked about this. One of them has been around the filtration system. And whether it's possible just to fix the filtration system alone, just to buy us a few more months while we look into what else might be possible. I've been advised that the pool would need to be drained for this to happen. I have had subsequent queries about that, asking surely whether or not it's possible to fix the filtration system without draining the pool. I'm obviously not an expert in pool filtration systems. The advice I've been given is that, I'll just read this out because it's easier. The filtration system in this situation is the pool filter vessel, pipework, pool pumps, and dossing units. This would be complete replacement of the existing filtration system, which would include the pipework to and from the pool, and hence the need to empty the tank. While at other sites, if we were only replacing the filter media, which includes silica, sand, and glass, inside the pool filter tank, it could be physically possible to keep the water in the pool in this situation. However, contractor reports highlight an issue with one of the outlet pipes, which would need to be repaired. The concerns are that tile that are tied both to the filtration system and the condition of the pool tank. So there are concerns that tiles are lifting and that basically the tank very likely needs repairs. And there are concerns that by draining the pool, the risk is that the size possibly might collapse without the pressure of the water. We don't know. This is just fears. So that's sort of the background on that. And I guess just reflecting back on the listening council element that we just spoke about, I've had a lot of concerned residents. Myself, Vicky, Sue, Carl and Ben have been to Buntingford 3 times to present information about this and to gather feedback from residents. A resident petition about the pool started about a week ago. When I last checked this at 6 o'clock today, it had 1,055 signatures. There have been lots of comments underneath this petition, and if I may, I'd like to read a few of them out. So one of the residents said, following a knee replacement surgery, my husband found himself unable to participate in activities such as biking or running. However, swimming provided him with an accessible and effective form of exercise that has significantly improved his health and well-being. Another resident said, swimming is a fantastic way of keeping mind and body fit, and losing our community pool will have such a negative impact. I'm sad that we run the risk of losing such a vital community facility. Buntingford has doubled in size and we cannot lose this service. A third comment, both my children had swimming lessons here, birthday parties, and we are regularly using the pool. Swimming is an important skill for children, exercise for all generations. Please do not close this pool. I've had several others along these lines. Another lady also said that she works for a special needs school where they've been using Ward Freeman Pool for about a year for swimming lessons. It's somewhere that the children feel safe and at ease, and the lifeguards and managers are both understanding and accommodating. And it's a major part of their curriculum, and that closing the school will not only devastate the children, but also the community who use the pool on a regular basis. Alongside the petition, there's also been a crowdfunder that started on Friday by one resident, and that's already received over £500. When I last checked, it could well have gone up since then. On behalf of the residents, I've received, as I say, many feelings about this. Residents feeling angry and disappointed that the pool has been underinvested in for several years under the previous Conservative-led administration of both the East Herts District Council and the Conservative-led administration of Hertfordshire County Council. The fact that neither of them could agree, so I should have said at the start, the pool is jointly funded by East Herts District Council and by Hertfordshire County Council. East Herts is responsible for paying for 60% of the costs, and Hertfordshire County Council is responsible for 40% of the costs. To my knowledge, there was one, possibly even two occasions where agreement was almost reached between the two councils in order to fund some repairs, but in the end, neither could agree. As one resident has said, well, these two Conservative-led councils, I'm adding in the Conservative-led bits, couldn't agree. We are the residents who then suffer because our pool hasn't been invested in. There are also residents angry about the fact that they've paid council tax, and in their perception, it is going to the larger towns, and while they're losing facilities in Buntingford. As stated, we've provided 3 presentations about this matter. During those presentations, I believe I presented a fair and measured and even-handed report about the circumstances and about the financial situations that have led to this point, and why we're now in a position where the pool, for health and safety reasons, is going to be in a position of having to close. However, that being said, I also have my personal feelings about this issue. Firstly, I'm angered that the pool has been left unmaintained for many, many years, and despite decades under both a Conservative-led Hertfordshire County Council and a Conservative-led East Herts District Council, and to boot a Conservative MP, no agreement could have been reached to jointly fund these repairs while that funding was a possibility. The lack of repairs has led to a much higher cost at this stage. A further point of contention is that when money was potentially available, the then Conservative-led administration chose to prioritise what some would call, and what other residents have called, vanity projects, including spending a huge amount on an expensive car park in Bishop Stortford that was not wanted nor popular and remains unused, largely unused. In addition, while of course it's wonderful that we are benefiting from larger projects such as, I guess, the Hertford Theatre and the other leisure centres, I know even at the time that these were discussed, councillors disagreed with the amount of money that was being spent on these projects to the loss of smaller towns that were missing out. And as far as I believe that some of those councillors who expressed those feelings are also here this evening. But it is not just the issue of our local Conservative-led administration that has led us here. There are also issues from Conservative-led central government funding cuts. We now have a third less money than we did 10 years ago, and yet we are still expected to deliver all of the services that have been delivered. This despite a cap on council tax raising, limiting us to raising it to no more than 2.99%, increased interest rates and increased inflation, making it impossible to plug this funding gap. We are now at a point where we need to save £1.5 million this year and £6 million over 4 years. We only earn £13 million, and we are required to deliver statutory services. We are also legally obliged to deliver a balanced budget. We risk the risk of going bankrupt were we not to deliver a balanced budget, which would then put all other essential yet non-statutory services at jeopardy. This collectively has put us as a new administration in this incredibly challenging and frankly unwanted position of not being able to finance these repairs alone. And it is, again, I stress, jointly required for both East Herts District Council and Hertfordshire County Council to fund these repairs. And I'm aware I'm not a pool expert, and I accept the advice that I've been given that for health and safety reasons, it has reached a point where we do not want to be sued for anyone suffering poor health, and we don't want anyone to get sick. But I would also like to add that as councillors, we are determined to continue working on ways to help these costs be funded. As you have heard, residents feel incredibly strongly about this. They feel incredibly strongly that local assets are saved. There are also lots of questions remaining about this matter and lots of other details to explore. But I would also like to add that despite all of this, and despite the feeling of unfairness that residents have expressed, we've also had some amazing offers of help from residents in Buntingford, who, despite the anxiety and the anger and the upset and concern for their children, have been coming forward and volunteering to help us find ways to make this work. We've spoken about looking at community pots. Residents, again, have offered to help us in this process. I would also like to use this time to say that we're also happy to explore funding options, again, with Hertfordshire County Council and with any other partners who are involved and anyone who can help us find a way to resolve this issue. Well, I have obviously gone into detail to express my feelings. Right now and going forward, my concern, and I'm sure is the concern shared by many, is that there is a way that we can find a way to resolve this issue and that the closure need only be temporary. And I was also reminded today that services were closed during COVID-19, pools were closed and were able to be closed in a way that they could be maintained to a point that they didn't further deteriorate. So I'm hopeful that this may be an option for Ward Freeman while we explore all possible funding avenues. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Sarah. I hear your passion. Yeah, I think we all share your views. So you're proposing the recommendation for executive that we would have to close the pool at the end of the school term in December while further investigations are undertaken as to potential solutions to remedy the health and safety concerns. We obviously don't want to do this, but we have to listen to health and safety concerns. We have to behave in a responsible manner as a council. So you're proposing this recommendation. Can I have a seconder, please? Miney, thank you very much. So questions, comments, discussion. Carl?
Obviously, the closure of Ward Freeman is obviously a terrible blow to the people of Buntingford, and I'd like to echo everything that Sarah's just said there about all the background and the history as to why we've got to where we are. But I just want to be a bit positive, and I'd just like to thank all the residents of Buntingford who came to our presentations over the last kind of 4 or 5 days, however long it is, because they shared a lot of good ideas with us. And it was really heartening to see the whole community coming together and offering help and support. And I think, going forward, I feel that there's, possibilities there that we'll be able to find solutions, within the community. And I just want to assure those residents that we will continue to work with them and try and find those solutions. And, hopefully this pool will open again, very soon. Thank you.
Thanks, Carl. Yeah, Miney.
Thank you, Leader. Well, I fully support this recommendation. I am dismayed and as angry as Councillor Hopewell is about this situation. I think it is disappointing, disgraceful, yes, horrible. And I do hope that we will be able to find a way to open the pool again. I support this recommendation because I know we do have to make sure that everybody is kept safe. I'm just wondering, if we approve this tonight, which I think we will, would there be any merit in this executive committee sending a letter to the county council asking it please to step up and at least provide the 40% of the costs that it was supposed to do in the first place? So I wonder, could we draft something which would have a little bit of sort of official standing from this executive committee to the county council to request them please to take their share of the costs.
Thanks, Marnie. I think that's a good point, and perhaps we can discuss that with Sarah and with officers and look at what we can try to propose to try and find if there's a way through, or if there's a potential help in the longer term. I think that would be definitely worth trying. So yeah, thanks very much. Any other comment, Vicky?
Well, firstly, I know that Carl and Sarah and council officers and also everyone active have been working extremely hard to explore the options to try and keep the pool open. And when it became evident that it was not possible to keep it open without the major repairs, they've been running around quite a lot to try and bottom out what can and can't be done. And I think that the work that's been done to try and save the pool so far has been very arduous, although I suspect it's going to be a longer and harder road going forward. And I'd also like to say that if there's anything we can do as a council to keep the pool open, that would be appreciated, although obviously there is a quite significant chunk of major expenditure that needs to be undertaken. I know the Lido was recently refurbished, including replacing the tank. And I believe that was because it was cracked and had problems, and it might be worth looking at the company that did that, because I understand that they did something innovative with it, which might mean that we don't actually have to drain the pool, just as a suggestion. Thank you. And thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, thanks very much, Vicky. I think that's a really good point. I think we do need to thank officers, because I know that they've been working really, really hard to try and find, get the information, first of all, from county and others. So I think we do want to say our appreciation for their efforts. Sarah, you wanted to come back?
Yeah, sorry, I do want to reiterate that as well. I know I've been stressing them out with my endless questions about this over the last umpteen months. So I do really, really appreciate that. And also just to reiterate what Carl said, I've really been moved by just how many residents have stepped up and just shown that they are really keen to do what they can to help save this community asset. It's, in the face of bad news, there's been some truly moving responses. So just to reiterate that point as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
I've got a lot to say, and I haven't really put it into any particular order, but I'd have to declare an informal interest in this situation, because I come from a house where swimming is very important. My wife's a member of a swimming club. She swims 3 times a week. All of my kids have been members of swimming teams and clubs. My oldest son's a lifeguard. He does that alongside his studies, and I like to take part in the odd triathlon from time to time. So I do my fair share of swimming myself. And in fact, one of the Bunting for residents is a very good friend of mine. He's a member of my wife's family. He uses the pool 2-3 times a week in Buntingford. He's 73 years old, and he's training to do an Ironman next summer. And we hope to do it together. And it will be one in a long succession of these events that we've both done over the last 10 years. And I got in a car with him to go on a cycle trip the other day, and I said, I've got to tell you, they're closing the pool. And the look on his face, you know, it's just the disappointment that this chap, who is a real outlet for him, you know, it's what he does. It kind of, he's close to retirement. He still works at 73, but you know, it's just like, what? You're joking. So I think I wanted to make the point, none of us on this panel here, none of us became exec members to close swimming pools. That's not why we're here. You know, I think this group of people, we stand for the exact opposite of this situation that we found ourselves in. And it has to be said, we weren't presented with 2 options here. We were presented with, you've got to close it for health and safety. You know, it's not that we've decided to do that. We've had no choice. We've just got to endorse it. I don't know, whatever the term is. But so yeah, it's disappointing when you're presented with this situation. It is important, therefore, as Sarah said, better than I'm going to spell it out now, that this is not a decision we've taken because we've decided this is how we're going to strategically manage our finances. This is long-term issues that have led to this. And it's also made me, you know, really think, why am I here? What am I doing this for? Like, what is the purpose of us being council? You know, what do people look to the council for? Society's moving on, everything's changing. All of I've seen in the last 4 or 5 years is just cut after cut after cut. I think I mentioned it in one of the other meetings. It's something like our spending power's down by 27% in the last 10 years as local authorities. But what do people look to us for? They look to us, in my mind, for services. They want their bins picked up. They want their planning application processed on time. They want facilities. They want parks, open spaces, swimming pool. And it's just so sad to be sitting here. We're in a position where, for things that we haven't created, that this is where we're at, and these are the decisions we're having to take. And it just, it feels not just this, but other aspects. We're just firefighting and whack-a-moling problems that we've inherited. And I think it's really important the public know that we haven't come here to make these changes. It's a very difficult situation, whatever colour you wear, up and down the country. I'm sure people are having to make people in positions like ours, having to make these very, very difficult decisions. I did want to try and take one positive from this situation, and I know one of the things we said was the pool doesn't get used very much, but that's made me look and think, well, kind of whose fault is that? Is there more that we could do to promote health and well-being? Should it be one of our priorities to look at, getting people into the swimming pool so that more people get to the age of 73 and can still undertake a 140-mile triathlon? And the pressure that takes off our health service and the well-being that takes off and the money it puts into the economy. And I would like to ask the executive member if she would work with me to review our, is it leisure strategy, Helen? And have a re-look at our leisure strategy and see if there's anything that we can improve or tweak to try and promote health and well-being. But in actual fact, these things make a profit and we absolutely have to keep them. Thank you.
Well said. Thanks. Anyone else? Any other comments? Questions? Stan? Of course. You're welcome. Oh,
it's been a lot said, and it was most warming when my colleague in front of me said about the 73-year-old chappie going swimming. That'd be about the age when I used to go 5 days a week. I had the advantage of just walking across the recreation ground. So it was quite easy, even at 6 o'clock in the morning, getting up there. But it was one of the fittest times in my life, that was, for, going there and doing that regular. So I appreciate, and I know exactly where you're coming from. I'm well aware of the costs that the pool is losing, and also the costs that on the repair. It's a sad day, very sad day, because our residents will have to travel at least 13 miles to get to the nearest pool if they want to swim. And it's again sad because the place is taking about 1,800 houses, which is about half the size now of what the town was before. That's the amount it's grown. And if it seems to me, and hopefully the stories I've heard on the grapevine, that they are trying to get a sports association to try and take it on, because given the time for those people that have moved out there that have produced young children, big families, that money could possibly be recuperated. I've listened. There's quite a lot that I think can be done, and being a local resident for 86 years, I'll be only pleased to accept it. Thank you, Chairman.
thanks, Dan. Well said. That's great. Miley?
Thank you, Leader. I noticed that our finance officer is sitting here very quietly in the meeting, and I just wonder whether he might be able to give us some advice about meeting some of these costs.
I don't know, Stephen. I don't know. That's sort of putting you in a difficult position, but I don't know if you've got any comments you can make.
I would just say I can't give advice at this point. It would be more appropriate for me to give you advice at your meeting on the 21st of December when you consider the budget in the round.
Fair. Thank you. questions? Any other comments? Yeah, Joe?
Sort of just to go back on that, but isn't reality that the money just isn't there?
Yeah.
Through you know, forces that have happened previously that are beyond our control. But yeah, I just think, you know, people should know that it's not like we've made a decision and our finance people, it's the money isn't there from what I've seen.
Yeah. No, I think that's a fair comment, and I think, you know, I just want to thank Sarah and the others who have worked really hard going out to Buntingford and talking to residents and really actually looking beyond this. And I think that's what we've all got to do. We've got to look beyond this and how we take the next steps to ensure that we don't lose the pool, even if East Herts can't afford it. There are things that we can help residents do and work together with other groups to keep it going. And I think that's what we've got to bear in mind. Yeah, Alex.
I just think actually what Sarah's done, and I know it's a huge amount of time you put in on top of your young family that you have and your job, but you know, it's a good example of that relates as a practical example of a listening council and the way that we want to develop as a council going forward. So well done to you.
Okay, so I think, you know, regretfully, I think we need to vote on this. So there's one recommendation to close the pool at the end of the school term in December, while further investigations can be undertaken as to potential solutions to remedy the health and safety concerns. Can I have a show of hands to indicate whether we are in favour or against? In favour? Thank you. Yeah, it is. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Any against? And abstentions? No. Okay, that's passed. Thank you very much. I think that was a really helpful discussion. I appreciate it. It was quite long, but I think it was all the words were well worth saying. So thank you. Item 13 is the final item. Anything of urgent business? Okay, we have no urgent business. So at 2017, I declare the meeting closed.